Kicking off at number 5, the Helicoprion. And please forget about the Megalodon when it comes to some of the most bizarre and impossibly terrifying creatures that would have roamed the 7 seas of the ancient world, because the Helicoprion is a literal buzzsaw of a shark. And when I say literal buzzsaw, I mean it. Have you ever heard of a tooth whirl? Well, no, because seemingly it was an evolutionary offshoot that didn't exactly catch on back in the day when life was figuring out a way. But at some point in time, this aquatic creature figured it could get by growing a circular saw out of its mouth. Back in 2011, a strange tooth whirl was discovered on the skull of a Helicoprion in the Phosphoria site of Idaho that measured a staggering 18 inches in length. Now, it gave an explanation to an evolutionary curiosity that had existed since the late 1890s of a species of ancient shark that seemingly grew teeth in an incredibly bizarre pattern, attached to their lower jaw by a mass of cartilage. What's even more terrifying is that the Helicoprion is believed to have created this teeth whirl in the pattern of a growth ring, as this shark aged, its new teeth would push the previous set back in an infinite whirl, and essentially the older the shark, the bigger the buzzsaw. The jaw would close, rotating the teeth backwards in the fashion of a circular saw. Now, thankfully for us, this species of shark existed over 290 million years ago, so there'll be no risk of us running into such a terrifying monstrosity anytime soon. But the fact that evolution caused this creature's jaw to try and become a literal maw of razor sharp teeth like some horrifying Lovecraftian beast is nightmare fuel enough. Perhaps its closest relative is the goblin shark or the tiny spookfish and ghost sharks that have considerably shrunk down in size since their heyday. Presumably, we can only guess as to its feeding habits, but with the way its teeth were assembled, that's a pretty tall order for our imaginations. Oh, and also, did I mention that they were about 40 feet in length? Not today, Helicoprion. No thank you. Swinging in at number 4, the Dunkleosteus. Alright, unfortunately we're going to have to stay in the ocean for a little while longer, because if we're talking subaquatic horror movies, then I think I may have the perfect candidate, and certainly one that hasn't been covered in horror cinema before. Yet anyway. Forget about Piranha 3D, forget about Deep Blue Sea, let me introduce you to the Dunkleosteus. Alright, okay, maybe on the surface they don't look that terrifying, especially compared to the Helicoprion, but just hold that thought for a moment. Fish assemble in shoals, right? Swimming about in great big swarms under the sea, bright and colourful and most of them pretty unassuming, who generally make up the prey rather than the predator. Well, about 380 million years ago, things would have been a little bit different, especially if this guy was about a giant armoured fish whose jaws possessed enough pressure to exert over 755 kilograms of pressure. Now imagine a whole swarm of them coming toward you. Also, it's important to note that there are over 10 different species of the Dunkleosteus, suggesting that they were in fact both numerous and diverse creatures, vastly populating the oceans of the ancient world. The largest of the species is the Dunkleosteus torelli, a fish that had a rounded snout and 2 razor-sharp plates that made up its beak of a jaw. Like other placoderms of the time, it had a 2-part, highly armoured exterior made from bone, and the reason that it possessed such a powerful beak, and another source for the nightmare fuel, is that it's also theorized these creatures cannibalized each other. Oh, and also, again, did I mention that the largest of these things grew up to 20 feet in length? It's a freaking fish. Really, the Dunkleosteus makes the piranha of today look like a goldfish. These things are the most metal thing that you could ever have possibly battered and fried and served alongside chips with mushy peas. Cannibals, scourge of the sea, razor sharp beaks. No thank you. No thank you, no wonder we left the ocean. Next up at number 3, the Megalania. Alright, now, some of you may have looked at this list and thought, dragons. I bet there's going to be some dragons on this list. But yeah, come on guys, we know that dragons aren't real. And I'm starting to string you along like that. I really am. Komodo dragons though, those things are very, very real. Just imagine a horror movie with a whole pit full of Komodo dragons slobbering around with vile poisonous spit frothing from their mouths, and whilst I'm still pretty damn shocked that Komodo dragons haven't featured in their own blockbuster modern horror film yet, although they've certainly been covered in B movies, forget about that for now. Sideline the Komodo dragon, because their ancient ancestor is far, far more terrifying. Let me introduce you to the Megalania, the largest terrestrial lizard ever known to have existed, and one of the few ancient creatures on this list that would have been skittering across the earth alongside our ancient human ancestors. Yeah, you heard that right. This guy would have been a contender on the apex predatory pyramid, and given the fact that the Greek translation of this creature's name is Ancient Giant Butcher, yeah, competition. Now, given the fact that there is a lack of a complete skeleton of the Megalania, it's hard to establish its exact size, but the most conservative of estimations put this giant lizard at around 23 feet in length with a maximum weight of 620 kilos. Judging from its size alone, it would have fed upon mid to large animals, mostly giant marsupials such as the Diprotodon, as well as large birds and their chicks. Native to Australia, some scientists regard the Megalania as the only predator of the Australian Pleistocene megafauna, meaning that this thing would have dominated the landscape as the apex predator of the time, rivaled only by the Quincana, a genus of extinct terrestrial crocodile. Oh yeah, and also as a varanid lizard, this thing was dripping with a highly venomous hemotoxin, and given the fact it is the largest venomous vertebrate ever known, and even more terrifying, the indigenous people of Australia would have been around at the time of the Megalania. Yeah, humans were kept awake at night by the thought of this terrifying lizard out in the bush. No thank you. Coming in at number 2, the hell pig. Alright, now whilst it may seem that by name alone this thing is terrifying enough, I've thought long and hard about what would possibly be the best premise for a horror movie ancient creature throughout the confines of this list. Certainly, the hell pig would strike fear just by its title, but bear with me because the implication behind this giant pig of the wild is going to take a little bit of our imagination for it to truly ignite the nightmare fuel. The Archaeotherium, which means ancient beast, isn't really a pig. In fact, whilst it certainly would visually resemble what are now wild warthogs, the hell pig is actually far closer to being a hippo or even a whale than it is the common swine. It is derived from a disputed genus, the Artiodactyls, which are an ancestral group that now makes up deer, sheep, camels and llamas, and whilst those guys certainly aren't ready to shovel the fear in our faces despite their best efforts, the hell pig was certainly willing and able. For one reason alone. Have you ever seen a hippo open its jaws? Do you know what damage can be wrought by a hippo opening and closing its mouth on a creature's head? Hippos are insane, and these guys, the hell pigs, were the halcyon purveyors of that same ancient terror, a frightening hybrid of warthog meets hippopotamus that roamed the insane wilderness in packs of hell pigs, hunting down prehistoric rhinos. Seriously guys, these hell pigs preyed on the ancestors of rhinos just for the hell of it. Also, because of the structural limitations of their bizarre hybrid maw, the hell pig would have had to have bisected its prey into chunks of flesh before gnawing on it and crunching it down into a mush like some strange giant hell pig truffle hunter. Hell pigs were crazy guys, and if you were scared of razorback, then just imagine a herd of these things coming for you. They wouldn't even give you the mercy of a quick death. It'd just be slow and full of hippo teeth. And finally, coming in at number 1 spot, Haass Eagle. Because yes, when it comes to a creature of such power and terror that would have certainly feasted upon humans given the chance, in that regard, Haass Eagle is one of the undisputed champions of the ancient world. Also, it just so happens to be the largest eagle ever known to have existed. The largest eagle ever. Do you know how efficient eagles are as predators? Yeah. Frighteningly so. They're the lord of the skies for a reason. Now picture them with a wingspan of nearly 10 feet. And you'll be ready to feel the same fear that the poor flightless moa bird felt before they were hunted to extinction. Have you ever heard of island gigantism? It's a biological phenomenon that occurs when the size of a predator suddenly blows up after being left isolated on an island to hunt all of the poor helpless prey that it so desires. Such is the case with Haass Eagle, specifically in the South Island of New Zealand, presumably around the year 1200 or so AD. You see, the point where this entry earns its feathers is that for an unknown amount of time, Haass Eagle feasted on the flightless moa bird of New Zealand to their heart's content. Eventually though, when the early Maori settlers arrived on the island around the year 1280, eventually in about 1400 AD, Haass Eagle had hunted all of the moa to extinction. At this specific point in time, when the Haass Eagle were tragically slipping away from this planet and becoming extinct in their own right, they would literally eat children. These giant, swooping, legendary feathered and beaked predators would soar from the skies of New Zealand, attack and eat Maori children, even in some cases grown humans. Now, although these occurrences are only passed down through Maori legend, Haass Eagle plays an integral role in their oral traditions. They refer to it as Puakai, the monster bird, a literal ancestor of the true raptor. The Haass Eagle was so damn terrifying that it earned its own place in the mythos of Maori culture. Yeah, it's sad to see such a beautiful creature no longer with us, but holy moly, these birds would have torn us to shreds.
Number 5, Wolverine Fish. Hugh Jackman, if you're watching this and you like scary stuff, this first one's for you, my dude. In 2021, there were more than 200 new species of just freshwater fish discovered alone. Just freshwater. Hopefully Ancistrus wolverine. Okay, that's a pretty badass name. And a badass looking fish. There's no way in hell I'm taking that thing off of a hook with my hands. Are you kidding me? And you wouldn't want to either, because these fishes have strong lateral curved spikes called endontus tucked underneath their gills, which at any time they can extend and jab at their prey with these spiky prong-like claws, hence the name. For those of you who don't know Wolverine, he's an X-Men with claws. It kind of goes hand in hand here, you know? The Wolverine fish is actually a catfish, however, that grows up to only about 6 or 7 inches long. They get their name from both the barbed razor-sharp prongs associated with them and the temper and aggression inside of them. Yeah, so like full-blown Wolverine-style anger. Luckily for us, they live in between rocks found so far in the Brazilian river of Rio Xingu in the lower Amazon that I don't think you're gonna swim into any one of these soon. I feel like that's where the scariest fish are, the Amazon. Also, kind of confusing biologists, so many species and names alike but not alike. Catfish, wolf fish, half wolf, half man, X-Men fish. Like every day there's a new fish. Wolverine fish are only herbivores and graze on algae and detritus tucked away deep under rocks, so the likelihood of you just like stepping on one of these are pretty low. Might scare you away from their home, but they won't eat you. Just don't go flipping over any rocks and reaching underneath murky water in the Amazon. That's all I can say for this one. Number 4, alien fish? Well, one magnificent alien fish, Advena magnifica, which translates to magnificent alien, hence the name. No, it's not from outer space or anything, don't panic. Technically, it's not even a fish. This sea sponge literally gets its name because it just looks like E.T. Hey, I didn't name it, they did. To be fair, it does look like E.T. the alien, come on. The long neck, the huge head, the big eyes, it's literally perfect. This year, a new sea sponge was discovered officially. Well, plucked back in 2017, but they're sure now that it's a completely new species. Over 6,000 feet deep in the Pacific Ocean, research team from the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History came upon a mesmerizing seascape. Dr. Chris Ma of the team dubbed the scene, quote, a forest of the weird. The sea sponge rises up from the seafloor to look exactly onto the direction of the current, mouth open, hoping to swallow up some bacteria to eat. That's sick, just an alien sponge sticking their ET heads out, catching the breeze, hoping for some fast food. Doesn't sound like a bad gig. The 2 holes of the sponge that give it its signature ET eyes appearance are clearly visible on the outside of its head. These holes, technically oscules, serve as openings of which the sponge pumps water out of. The sponge is covered in even tinier pores where the water is drawn into the sponge along with tasty bacteria and other small prey. Just sucked in through small chambers and the water's pumped out through a bunch of canals. Cristiana Castello Branco, the researcher who found this deep-sea gray, explains the importance of this discovery by saying, quote, as all of these organisms are intricately connected, by documenting and describing marine biodiversity, we are building a better understanding of life and the impact of humans on Earth. Yeah, 100% we're all connected. Let's give these little dudes some clean water. How about that, people, all right? No more Mountain Dew bottles just thrown into the lake. Pick it up. Number 3, bulldog fish. Catfish, Wolverine fish, now bulldog fish. When are we just gonna have a fish, you know? The bulldog fish, or the Xenactinus oryx. That sounds like a Decepticon, doesn't it? Xenactinus oryx? Roll out. Well, it's Autobots. Never mind. This thing can truly teach a new dog some old tricks. Like 90 million years old tricks, because our newest discovery is actually a really old one. Extinct, thankfully. You wouldn't want to haul this thing up in your net. The Dino of the Week blog states that some of the longest bulldog fish ever may have once even measured up to 6 meters long. Yeah, that's like a regular sized shark. The bulldog fish fossils may be quite valuable as well. A fully intact, complete framed specimen sold for about $110,000 at Sotheby's auction house. Is this the reason fish and chips are so expensive nowadays? Like, what's going on here? This scary dude roamed the warm, shallow waters of the Western Interior Seaway that split America in 2 halves during the Upper Cretaceous period. Distinguished by their heavy, bony skull and armed to the tooth with teeth like a nightmare, last year, Andy Moore, a local fisherman, made a discovery while taking part in a fishing competition in Nebraska. When he brought his kayak over to free his line, he first thought that it was a skeleton of something that had recently died, so he just returned back to his tournament. He contacted the sheriff's department after the tournament, worried, and they got back to him saying it was his lucky day. Dude, imagine just reeling in a 90 million year old fish during a fishing tournament. Like, I hope he won. That's definitely first place, isn't it? Oh, Andy? Oh yeah, caught a 90 millioner, yeah. Number 2, the barrel eye fish. Tubular eyes, bro. No, seriously, you're Tubular eyes, actually, are very rare and also significantly puzzling. Say hello to the barrel-eye fish, or the Macropina microstoma from the Opisthoproctus species, meaning backwards in Greek, to signify their uniquely designed flipped-up eyes luminously inside, alive in their head, or backwards. Generally directed upwards and back to detect the silhouettes of both predator and prey, although they can move their eyes back to forward. Basically, they have a sunroof above their head that they can look up from inside their own head. Hey, that's pretty tubular, bruh. They can be found deep in tropical waters in the twilight zone, between 600 and 800 meters down. There are fish that gaze upwards through their transparent heads with eyes like mesmerizing emerald orbs. These domes are huge spherical lenses that sit on a pair of long silvery eye tubes, hence its common name. The barrel-eye fish has a green tint over their eyes, which even acts as kind of like a sunglasses to help them track down prey in any sort of lighting. There is literally nowhere to hide, even for a bioluminescent fish. Barrel eyes are one step ahead the entire time. After years of only seeing dead, net-caught specimens, in 2021, Bruce Robinson with the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute in California and their high-def cameras finally got a pretty good look at these dudes using remotely operated vehicles. Dude, these are apparently really rare. Side note, is this how fish are evolving? Like their heads are becoming see-through all of a sudden? Because this is terrifying. Like imagine a shark with a sunroof. Number 1, the snapping shrimp. This little guy, the snapping shrimp, aka the pistol shrimp, aka mussel in the Alphidae family. Sounds like a mafia family, doesn't it? Hey, I'm a pistol shrimp with the Alphidae family, who's asking? This little thing can literally create a sonic boom under the water right before and as it's attacking you. That's not scary at all. It's so fast you literally don't even know what's happening due to the stun alone and how fast it is. You won't see it coming, you might hear it coming. This thing's sound is that big, it creates a sonic boom. We know nothing, Jon Snow. Like, they're apparently found in coral reefs and oyster reefs. These pistol shrimp hit their prey at over 100 kilometers per hour. In doing so, a large air bubble is created, and because this Mike Tyson shrimp is so quick with the jab, the following pop is around 200 decibels. It has a punching hand and a claw hand, like a jab and a cross. The sound stuns their prey first and resembles sticks breaking or cracking of a knuckle under the water. But don't panic, not in any lakes or freshwater, they live in tropical seas. They're usually muddy green or orange in color, usually only about that big. Scientists found that actual light is produced when the bubble pops due to the high temperature and pressure under the water. They're the only ones so far that can do this. I mean, this is pretty sick. And also pretty terrifying. The knowledge that fish are starting to learn how to flashbang other fish like they're clearing a room in Call of Duty, dude, that's where I draw the line. I'm not going swimming anymore at all.
Coming in at number 5, we have Titan Triggerfish. These fish are known to be quite aggressive to their prey, and they tend to bite divers who come too close to their nests. These fish are among the largest species of triggerfish, and they are commonly found in lagoons and at reefs deep in the ocean, stretching from Australia to Thailand. Their diet consists of sea urchins, crustaceans, tube worms, and coral. It often feeds by turning over rocks, stirring up sand, and biting off pieces of branching coral. They don't typically feed on other fish, but they've been observed being aggressive and attacking other fish who enter their territory. Along with being aggressive, naturally they get extremely aggressive during the reproduction season when the female is guarding its nest, which is placed in a flat and sandy area and looks roughly cone-shaped. If you dive down and come in contact with the female fish near her nest, it will defend its eggs at all costs, often exposing its erect dorsal spine and swimming rapidly towards you to attack. It is suggested to swim horizontally away from the danger zone rather than going up to the surface right away. Triggerfish can grow up to 30 inches, and their size and oval shape make them very recognizable, along with their threatening looking teeth, and have evolved as an apex predator within their natural habitat. If you're on vacation and are planning to go scuba diving or snorkeling, be careful not to swim near coral reefs because they tend to swim around there, and if you get too close they will attack and bite you. The Titan triggerfish bites are not venomous, they are extremely painful and can cause serious injury. Coming in at number 4, we have flower urchin. Yes, it has a nice name, but it is anything but that. It is considered to be the most dangerous urchin in the world. This urchin has flower-like patterning and are usually a pinkish white to yellowish white colouring with a central purple dot, and that's how it got its beautiful name. They tend to live in coral reefs, seagrass, and sandy environments, lower lower down towards the ocean floor, and it feeds on algae, bryozoans and organic detritus, and can grow to a maximum diameter of 15 to 20 centimeters. They reside from Japan all the way to Australia and in the Red Sea to the East African coast. Flower urchins are among the numerous species of sea urchins known as collector urchins, and they often cover their upper body with debris from their surroundings to camouflage from others. They're usually covered in objects like dead coral fragments, shells, seaweeds, and rocks. If you just simply touch this creature, it can deliver excruciatingly painful stings that can result in hospitalization. It can cause paralysis of the tongue, lips, eyes, and muscles, faintness, difficulty breathing, and the inability to speak. A scientist named Tsutomu Fujiwara, who was once stung by the flower urchin, described feeling like he was going to die. So when in the ocean, beware of your surroundings and make sure not to touch this urchin. Another account of someone being stung by these dangerous creatures was the drowning of a pearl diver after being rendered unconscious from accidental contact with a flower urchin. Again, if you're going to be swimming, snorkeling, or deep sea diving in the ocean, be very careful you don't come into contact with these beautiful yet dangerous creatures. Coming in at number 3, we have the blue-ringed octopus. This creature is beautiful looking and easily recognizable due to their yellow skin and blue and black rings, but it's one of the deadliest species of small octopus in the ocean, and scientists have even classified them as one of the world's most dangerous animals. To the eye, this creature is beautiful, but their blue and black rings around their bodies change dramatically when they become threatened. Despite only being 5 to 8 inches in size, their venom is extremely powerful and can be very dangerous to humans if they're provoked. If stung, it can result in a number of things such as nausea, respiratory arrest, heart failure, blindness, total body paralysis, and can lead to death within a few minutes if not treated, or could cause drowning due to the results of the venom, and the inability to swim to the surface. In order to come in contact with the creature's venom, you would have to come into direct contact with the octopus. When faced with danger, the octopus's first instinct is to flee, but if the threat persists, they will then go into a defensive stance and display its blue rings. If the octopus is cornered or touched, the person would be in danger of being bitten and stung by its deadly venom. They are named one of the deadliest sea creatures for a reason, because despite them being such a small animal, they carry enough venom in their bodies to kill up to 26 humans within just a few minutes. These terrifying sea creatures feed crabs, shrimp, and other small animals. They reside in tide pools and coral reefs in the Pacific and Indian Oceans, from Japan to Australia, and their species tend to only live around 2 to 3 years, but this may vary based on their nutrition, temperature, and intensity of light. Be extremely careful when in the ocean. Be sure to watch out for these terrifying creatures. They would be easy to see due to their bright colors, but if spotted, swim away fast before you get attacked. Coming in at number 2, the box jellyfish. This is a species of jellyfish that usually tops the list of the most dangerous sea creatures in the world, and the world's most venomous creature. At first look, its appearance isn't too threatening, but if stung, it is life-threatening. The sting can result in death in less than 5 minutes. The most recent death from a box jellyfish sting was in February 2021 to a man who passed away 10 days after being stung while swimming at Cape York Beach in Australia. Before that, the last known fatality was in 2007, and total of 79 deaths since the first report in 1883, and that's just in Australia alone. In the Philippines, there are far more fatalities, with up to 40 deaths annually. In Thailand, after a man died in 2014 from a box jellyfish sting, they enhanced their first aid stations on beaches, but yet the next year 2 more fatalities occurred due to this deadly sea creature. Unlike some jellyfish, the box jellyfish can swim, which means they're capable of hunting for prey and can move through the ocean at a very fast pace of up to 8 miles per hour. They actively hunt their prey, which tend to be smaller fish and invertebrates including prawns and baitfish. Unfortunately, the box jellyfish has many enemies like crabs, different species of turtles, rabbitfish, batfish, and butterfish, but their swift swimming and venomous stings help themselves stay alive. An interesting fact about box jellyfish is that in Hawaii, the number of box jellyfish peak after a full moon, which is apparently when they come near the shore to spawn. So if you're thinking of going for a swim in the ocean during a beautiful full moon, I'd advise to just wait until the next day, because you don't want to ruin a nice vacation with a fatal box jellyfish sting. No one wants to ruin a vacation by dying. That would suck. And finally, in at number 1, we have cone snail. Just by looking at this little snail sitting in its shell, you wouldn't think it would be dangerous or harmful at all. Their shells are beautiful looking, with colourful and complex patterns on its shell, but don't be fooled, you should never handle this snail. It is one of the most venomous sea snails in the ocean. There are over 600 species of these cone snails all around the world, and they are extremely toxic. The most dangerous species to humans are the slightly larger ones, but pretty much all cone snails are capable of stinging if handled or stepped on and can be very fatal to humans. Cone snails use a hypodermic needle-like modified radula tooth, and their toxic venom gland is used to attack and paralyze their prey instantly before eating them. The tooth is hollow and barbed and is attached to the tip of the radula inside the snail's throat. When the snail detects an animal nearby that it wants to feed on, it extends a long flexible tube called a proboscis towards their prey, and the radula tooth is loaded with their toxic venom from their venom bulb and is fired into the prey by a powerful muscular contraction. It's like gleeking. They tend to be found in all tropical and subtropical seas in deep areas near rocks and coral reefs. These toxic creatures are carnivorous and predatory, and they feed on small bottom-dwelling fish, marine worms, and even other cone snails. If you're going to swim in the ocean, you shouldn't really ever come in contact with these venomous creatures due to them living on the ocean floor. But if they ever wash up on the shore, be careful if you're collecting shells from your vacation, and make sure you don't pick up any cone shells just in case there's a snail living inside, because it could be deadly. Only one drop of their venom can kill up to 20 people. So when swimming in the oceans, be careful and watch out for all these deadly creatures. This is why I never go in the ocean, everything wants to kill you. Coming in at number 5 we have the striped surgeonfish. This fish is beautiful to look at, but beware to never cross paths with this creature. This species reaches about 38 centimeters in length and weighs only a little over a pound. Much of the body has black edged blue and yellow stripes, and the top of its head is striped with yellow. These fish have sharp forward pointing spikes on its spine and are extremely poisonous and are often referred to as knives. Along with the scary nickname this creature has, it actually gets its name surgeon because of its sharp angular scalpel-like tail, and is sharp enough to easily cut you. These fish are very territorial, with a large male defending a feeding territory and a harem of females. The adults may also school, and they gather during spawning. The fish eats mostly crustaceans and algae. It's so aggressive that it might try and corner or bully members of its own species to get the best resources. Not only are they aggressive with their own species, but they display the same behavior to fish outside of their species. The surgeonfish is a fast swimmer that can swim up to 25 miles per hour and can live up to a whopping 20 years. These scary creatures dwell in the shallow parts of the ocean where the reef crests are located, and often found in tropical oceans like the Indo-Pacific Ocean and Northern Great Barrier Reef. So if you're going to be swimming in the tropical oceans on vacation, be very careful of this creature. Don't be fooled by its beauty and stay far away, because it will defend itself and its spawn at all costs and can infect you with its venom. Scientists believe that the world's seas hold around 1,200 of these different venomous fish species, and that they injure an estimated 50,000 people per year, so beware and stay away from the striped surgeonfish. In at number 4 we have sea slugs. These are again a beautiful creature to look at, but you will need to stay far away from them. Sea slugs have an enormous variation in body shape, color, and size. Most of them tend to be partially translucent, and their often bright colors imply that these animals are under constant threat of predators. But the color can serve as a warning to other animals of the sea slug's toxic stinging cells or offensive taste. Some sea slugs eat prey that contains poison or venom, and instead of killing the prey, these slugs store the poison and release at predators for its own protection. Another disturbing fact about the sea slug is that they are cannibals. They are known to eat each other. They may eat a dead sea slug or attack a live one to eat it. Not only do they feed off their own, these creatures also eat plankton, algae, and jellyfish. These animals also have both male and female sex organs, and they can lay mass amounts of eggs, sometimes up to 1 million eggs, and these deadly creatures can live up to 4 years. Sea hares, which is a common name for a large group of herbivores, sea slugs, and the largest of the sea hares is the California black sea hare, which are naturally toxic, and they can eject a foul ink or secrete a vicious slime to deter predators. One type of sea slug in particular, the grey-side gilled sea slug, has been linked to canine deaths, and beachgoers are warned to keep their children and pets close by to avoid accidental ingestion or contact. There are so many types of sea slugs, and most of them are extremely dangerous, so if you see a pretty looking glob near the shore or while swimming, avoid it at all costs. In at number 3 we have the pufferfish. There are more than 120 different species of pufferfish worldwide, and are mostly found in tropical and subtropical ocean waters. They can range in size from 1-inch long dwarf puffer to the freshwater giant puffer, which can grow to more than 2 feet in length. These creatures are scaleless fish and usually have rough to spiky skin. All have 4 teeth that are fused together in a beak-like form. Pufferfish tend to mostly feed on invertebrates and algae, while larger larger puffers will even crack open and eat clams, mussels, and shellfish with their hard beaks. Poisonous puffers are believed to synthesize their deadly toxin from the bacteria in the animals they eat. Due to their slow and clumsy swimming style makes puffers very vulnerable to predators. When they feel threatened or notice a predator, they will use their highly elastic stomachs and the ability to quickly ingest huge amounts of water to turn themselves into a virtually inedible ball several times their normal size. Almost all pufferfish contain tetrodotoxin, a substance that makes them foul-tasting and often lethal to fish. To humans, these creatures are extremely toxic and deadly. They are up to 1,200 times more poisonous than cyanide. There is enough toxin in one pufferfish to kill 20 adult humans, and there is no known antidote. This toxin is secreted across their body, making puffers dangerous to touch and even more dangerous to consume. Surprisingly, the meat of some pufferfish is considered a delicacy called fuju in Japan. It is extremely expensive and can only be prepared by trained licensed chefs who know how to prepare it properly, because one bad cut means almost certain death for a customer. Many such deaths occur annually because of poor preparation. In at number 2 we have Candiru. This fish is something out of a nightmare. This creature has many scary nicknames such as the toothpick fish or vampire fish. These fish tend to be small, only growing to about 7 inches, but others can grow larger, around 16 inches. Their heads are small with short sensory barbels around it, backward pointing spines on the gill covers, and their bodies are translucent and make it difficult to spot these creatures. They tend to reside in the Amazon, so if you're planning a trip, beware of these creepy creatures if you're going for a quick dip. Not many humans have been attacked, which is good, but those that have, it's been deadly. This scary creature feeds on blood and has been found feeding on the urethras of swimmers. Once it penetrates its victims, it can cause inflammation, hemorrhaging, and even death. The earliest report of the Candiru attacking a human was in 1829, then again in 1855, and local Araguay fishermen stated that it is dangerous to urinate in the water as the fish springs out of the water and penetrates into the urethra by ascending the length of the liquid column. The most recent attack of a Candiru to a human was in 1997 in Brazil. A 23-year-old man was urinating while thigh deep in the water when he claimed the creature jumped from the water into his urethra. The victim underwent a 2-hour surgery to remove the fish from its body. Many speculate that these fish are attracted by the odor of the urine in the water, and that's what makes them attack, but others think these creatures hunt by sight and have no attraction to the urine at all. I think this creature might be the most terrifying of all sea creatures, because instead of just stinging or biting you, this creature actually inserts himself inside the human body and wreaks havoc. And finally, in at number 1 we have Du Bois sea snake / beaked sea snake. There are more than 50 species of sea snakes, but the deadliest are the Du Bois sea snake and the beaked sea snake. These venomous snakes reside in many regions of Australia, Papua New Guinea, New Caledonia, and are common throughout the Indo-Pacific. They live in coral reef flats, sandy and silty sediments which contain seaweed, invertebrates, and coral or sponges that can serve as shelter to them. These snakes feed on moray eels and various fish that live on the seafloor, up to 3.5 feet in size. Their venom affects its prey's ability to contract the muscles and makes the prey flaccid to make it easier for the snakes to eat. The Du Bois sea snake is the most venomous sea snakes and one of the top 3 in the world. These snakes use their fangs to bite and release their venom to immobilize their prey for their own protection. The toxins in these snakes' venom affects the nervous system and it causes paralyzation of the body's muscles, then causes death due to respiratory failure. The beaked sea snake is responsible for more than 50% of all sea snake bites, and each bite contains anywhere from 7.9 to 9 milligrams of venom. A human can die from just 1.5 milligrams. Scientists have estimated that their venom is 4 to 8 times more lethal than that of a cobra. So along with the Du Bois snake, this venomous creature is among the most dangerous and venomous snake in the world. Not only do you have to be worried about venomous snakes on land, but some of the deadliest are in our oceans, so be careful when swimming in warm climates, and be sure to not come in contact with these scary creatures.
Number 5. SCP-1128. Number 5 on our list, 1128, is a terrifying entity that manifests itself as a colossal aquatic predator. It's sometimes described as a being similar to a shark, only in a more grotesque and twisted appearance, with common descriptions across all sightings being a mouth full of teeth. The entity manifests itself as an aquatic predator to anyone who is given a full description of the beast's appearance, either through a written description or a spoken description, so Sorry for describing it. Few surviving subjects have described it as resembling a massive monstrous deformed shark. Once a subject is exposed to detailed knowledge of 1128, they become infected by its latent psychic ability, forming a connection. From here, no immediate abnormal changes in behavior or occurrences are present, with the only notable variance being a hesitation to enter bodies of water, for good reason too. Once an exposed subject submerges themselves completely in water, they are caught by 1128. Any submerged water is enough. Subjects are taken mysteriously to an ocean, the location of which is redacted by the Foundation. From here, you are hunted by SCP-1128. The Foundation patrols this unmarked ocean in a desperate attempt to contain the creature and protect anyone unfortunate enough to be caught in its trap. It's difficult to interview subjects after an exposure, as any detailed description of the encounter does run the risk of contaminating more Foundation members. Should a member or subject become infected by SCP-1128, treatment is immediately advised, with Class C amnesiacs being used to try and block memory of the entity. So, maybe for your sake and my sake, try to forget number 5 entirely, for your own safety. Now, the Foundation does advise that if you've been enjoying the content that we produce, you should toss a subscribe our way. Number 4, SCP-1451. SCP-1451 is an odd one, even by Foundation standards. SCP-1451 presents itself as a set of 26 metal statues at the bottom of the ocean. All appear to be statues of children of varying heights. The statues are all standing in a circle, holding each other's hands and facing outwards in a ring formation. Should any object, living or otherwise, with a mass greater than 40 grams enter into the ring, SCP-1451 begins to animate. The statues will shift themselves in a counterclockwise movement. Their hands will raise and lower slightly, and bubbles can be seen protruding from their mouths. Once it becomes fully animated, SCP-1451 displays advanced strength and tactics, being reported to use various martial arts to dispatch targets, pressure point application on humans, and precise strikes on machinery. They move in perfect unison and coordination, with some speculation that they operate on some level of hive mind mentality across the 26 individual entities. Once SCP-1451 has begun its hunt, it will not rest until it is disposed of whatever invaded its territory. The Foundation refers to 3 states of SCP-1451. Class 1 is the initial ring of statues in its inert state, Class 2 is the slight animation and bubbling seen present, and a Class 3 situation is when an active hunt has begun. To try and prevent a Class 3 situation, the SCP Foundation has installed a sphere of wire mesh netting to ensure nothing too large enters the ring. Natural water currents and oceanic movement aren't to be obstructed. The creature does need to eat sometimes. Number 3, SCP-835. SCP-835 manifests itself as a large cluster of polyps resembling a species of coral, although it's significantly larger than any discovered species of coral. The center mass of the cluster is a very large oval with 3-meter long polyps at each end. SCP-835 does not move, instead anchoring itself to the ocean floor using heaving tentacles that protrude from the polyps. The tentacles are coated in an adhesive substance and have been shown to be incredibly strong, capable of damaging bulkheads and steel. The coral base of SCP-835 is extremely durable and resistant to most attempts to collect any tissue samples, with the Foundation having to use high-powered diamond drill bits to collect even small samples of DNA. SCP-835 emits a large mass of semi-liquid material several times a day from each polyp. The toxic substance appears to be a mixture of digested solids, fecal matters, several bacteria, viruses, and parasites, with many sequences having originated only from 835. So what exactly makes SCP-835 so threatening? Well, sample reports from SCP-835 have shown that it's comprised almost exclusively of human DNA. Its hard shell seems to be recycled tooth enamel, its tentacles matching human flesh. A level 4 clearance declassified document from the Foundation detailed an encounter with an underwater isolation team, in which an incident in which 2 members of the isolation team were swallowed by SCP-835, pulled in by its tentacles deep underneath what they had initially thought to be a cave, but realized was the contents of SCP-835's stomach. The crew members reported descending deeper and deeper, spending up to 72 hours inside the creature's digestive tract, the insides of its intestines lined with remnants of unfortunate victims, claiming that they had been morphed into flesh, and there was a wall of faces crying for release. Eventually, one of the crew members was released, though after significant breaches to its suit, unfortunately, he had to be let go from the Foundation. We thank him for his service. Number 2, SCP-1092. SCP-1092 presents itself as a class of Asteichthyes fish, and when the creature is matured, it resembles any number of other ocean-dwelling fish, with the only notable variance being its increased aggressive behavior, attacking prey. It's difficult for the Foundation to study, as only adult specimens can be studied, as in its juvenile phase, SCP-1092 are parasites birthed from a living host. Once SCP-1092 infects the blood bloodstream of its host, absorbing nutrients directly from the host's blood. Once exposed, the parasites initially are but a few millimeters in most its size, but grow many times their size, with the largest extracted one on record being 2.1 centimeters. There is insufficient data on how SCP-1092 infects its hosts. The current research data theorizes that minuscule eggs makes its way into the body through small cuts and scrapes, which would explain the fish's violent tendencies. Those infected by SCP-1092 report fatigue, weight loss, and increased appetite, and in many cases report a feeling of something fluttering or squirming inside the body. However, this is not present in all cases, as there are reported case files of hosts not experiencing any visible symptoms whatsoever until the parasite has unfortunately matured to its adult aquatic stage. Once the parasites have matured, the now adolescent creature will try to forcibly remove themselves from the physical body of their host, using their sharp teeth to cut through blood vessels and skin. Subjects at this stage will sustain injuries, severe blood loss, and in some cases worse. Thankfully, the SCP Foundation has effectively secured SCP-1092, keeping it housed in a completely watertight cell, where it is given the occasional domestic pig to act as a host for its reproductive cycle. Poor little piggy. Thank you, piggy. Thank you, Foundation. Number 1. SCP-3000. SCP-3000 is one of the most powerful SCPs currently being monitored by the Foundation. SCP-3000 is a Class 8 cognitohazardous entity and is a Level 5 classified document. I really shouldn't even be talking to you about this, but it's good to get this information out there. It is a massive, massive aquatic sea serpent that closely resembles a moray eel, only gigantic. There's been significant difficulty in efforts in trying to document its true size, but it is estimated to be anywhere between 600 and 900 kilometers in length, with its head measuring roughly 2.5 meters wide and its body as large as 10 meters in diameter. SCP-3000, thankfully, is typically a sedentary creature, not moving much at all, usually only responding to feeding. The majority of its body rarely moves. SCP-3000 has been known to be carnivorous, and when it hunts, it has been known to move exceedingly quickly. Fascinatingly, despite its gargantuan size, SCP-3000 does not appear to need sustenance to maintain its body's function, and thus its digestive process is unknown. Although complicating matters slightly is a process wherein SCP-3000 disperses a thin layer of viscous dark gray sludge through its skin whilst it consumes its prey. It doesn't stop there though. SCP-3000 has been recognized to cause severe mental damage in those who research it. Direct observation and study has been proven to cause mental alteration in Foundation researchers, experiencing paranoia, fear, anxiety, memory loss, and most worryingly, inexplicable severe headaches. It's unknown how SCP-3000 causes this, but the theories are that it has a latent psychic ability. There are some who believe SCP-3000 could be an old god that has found its way into our world. The creature is too immense to be contained in any Foundation facility, instead being kept in a clandestine area of the Bay of Bengal, in an area barred from the public, routinely patrolled and surrounded by Foundation vessels. Be extremely thankful that the brave members of the Foundation are researching and containing this. Secure, contain, protect. Those are the goals of the Foundation. Number 5. The Kraken. Over the port side, boys! There she blows! Batter down the hatches, the Kraken's here! I'm sorry, I absolutely could not resist. I'm just trying to paint you a picture of the scene here. The Kraken is an absolutely legendary sea monster, harking back to old sailors' tales from the 17th century. It started as an old Nordic legend and was said to haunt the waters from Norway through Iceland. But as its legend grew, stories of the Kraken would be passed throughout the world, carrying on from sea to shining sea. It's widely theorized that the legend of the Kraken began with sightings of the colossal squid, a creature almost as mythical as the Kraken itself. An old fisherman's tale, it's depicted as a colossal cephalopod, capable of crushing a fully stacked galleon with its tentacles and bringing it down to the ocean floor. If the tentacles and its heaving beak aren't enough, it also creates whirlpools around it, as it drags your doomed ship down with it all the way down to Davy Jones's locker. The Kraken probably has one of the best PR agents in the sea monster community, being the subject of stories, songs for centuries, finding its way into numerous movies, a career-making role in Clash of the Titans, a very strong supporting role in the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise really helped elevate it to stardom, even finding its way into a bunch of video games over the years, serving as a boss for players in God of War, Sea of Thieves, and for the real OGs out there, RuneScape as well. When it comes down to who could defeat who, it's not even a question. The Megalodon wouldn't get so much as 30 seconds with the Kraken. The Kraken of lore was crushing ships in seconds. You think it's even gonna notice crushing a shark? Number 4, the Loch Ness Monster. Now, the Loch Ness Monster is probably the most famous sea creature of all time, and probably one of the most famous Scottish things of all time, alongside William Wallace, kilts, and haggis. It's also one of the world's oldest recurring cryptid stories, with the first reports reports of Nessie going all the way back to the year 565. And since then, Nessie has delighted cryptozoologists the world over, becoming a cultural icon for Scotland and the Loch Ness as a whole. There's been several concentrated efforts to really find the Loch Ness monster over the years, and while nothing has ever officially shown up on a sonar or a radar, that has never stopped the stream of sightings and photos of the Loch's gentle giant. Nessie seems pretty benevolent. There's never been a story or an allegation of the Loch Ness monster eating or hurting anyone, usually just sticking its cute little head out of the water for a quick little blurry candid to be discussed and analyzed for years. Let's talk serious for a second here. In the ring, squaring up in a 1v1, I've absolutely got Nessie over the Megalodon, easy. That long neck is going to wrap around the Meg, get that thing lassoed. You know, the Meg is big, sure. But the Loch Ness monster clearly has some stealth capabilities. I mean, it's been eluding capture for the better part of 1,500 years, so I've got to imagine that Nessie's got to know some pretty good tricks for hiding. But more so than anything, Nessie's got the people of Scotland riding for them. You're not just messing with a sea creature, Megalodon, you're messing with a beloved cultural icon. It would be like going to war against raccoons in Toronto. The people just won't stand for it. Number 3, Umubozu, translating to sea priest, is a yokai appearing in Japanese folklore. It's depicted as a large, shadowy figure looming out of the water, appearing to sailors, breaking the ship as it rises, and demanding a bucket from whatever unlucky sailor happens to cross its path. Maybe it's got a leak in the roof. There's some differing opinions onto what the origin of the Umubozu is, as there's no specific origin to its legacy or one tale we can point towards. But it's generally agreed that the origin is that they are the spirits of priests who were thrown into the ocean by villagers for one reason or another, and because these priests have had nowhere to lay their bodies to rest, their spirits inhabit the ocean and take the form of a dark specter, haunting and taking retribution on unfortunate souls in the waters. I'd never heard about this creature until researching it for this video, and I've got to say it has got some fantastic folklore. You really should do yourself a favor and look up Umubozu after. The Umubozu rising from the sea and asking if you've got a bucket for it is hilarious. Like it's more of an annoying roommate than a sea monster asking if it can borrow something. Folklore says the Umubozu would cling onto the hull of the ship and shriek at the sailors, sinking them down. The Umubozu's weakness? The smell of smoke, apparently. So if you're looking to get rid of one, light some sage up, I guess, or light something. I'm sure that's very easy to do when you're on a wooden boat in the water. Now, squaring up against the Megalodon. This one, I actually do feel like it could go either way. The Megalodon, giant shark, Umubozu, scary specter. But I am going to give the edge to Umubozu solely because I don't know if it's got an actual tangible physical form or if it's just a shadow monster. You know, Megalodon can't really bite through shadows, I don't think that's one of its powers. As well, I could really see Umubozu pulling that little trick, you know, hanging on to the side of the Meg, asking for a bucket, and then the Megalodon, who presumably doesn't speak any languages, not understanding what's happening, gets dragged down to the bottom of the sea, never to be seen again. Number 2, Skyla and Karabitus. Skyla and Karabitus are sort of like a wrestling tag team duo as far as mythical sea monsters go. They worked in tandem, hounding opposite sides of a narrow strait of water, and famously clashed with the Argo Odysseus, made famous in Homer's Odyssey. The first beast, Skyla, was described to be a dragon-like creature, having 12 feet, 6 long necks, and atop each neck was a head full of razor-sharp teeth. Sailors unlucky enough to pass through Skyla's territory were swooped from their vessel and swallowed whole before they'd even know what would happen. That doesn't sound so bad, you know, all in an instant. There's some speculation that perhaps the original Skyla was a very dramatized account of sailing through an underwater reef, which would definitely provide some explanation as to why a writhing mass of limbs and teeth would be shredding through a ship's hull. But Skyla is only one half of this dynamic duo, the Robin to Batman, and the other half is Karabitus. Karabitus is a little harder to describe, as it has no agreed appearance. In the original myth, the Odyssey, Karabitus presents itself as a whirlpool, savagely swirling around, creating the tides and pulling passing ships into their doom. Maybe it's just a little camera shy, and it lets its more handsome sibling take a lot of the front-facing business. However, of the two, it could be argued that Karabitus was the more dangerous of the two, as during the Odyssey, Odysseus chose to sail his ship closer to Skyla than Karabitus, figuring that it was wiser to lose 6 men to lose the entire ship. Very wise guy. Now, the Megalodon. Drop out of this one before you even try. A one-on-one is one thing, but a duo battle against a whirlpool and a 6-headed dragon? Save yourself the embarrassment and just clock out and go home. Number 1. Yormagander. Yormagander is another old Nordic sea legend, also known as the Midgard serpent or the world serpent, and is a serpent so large that its tail would surround the circumference of the earth and all its oceans and loop back around onto itself inside its mouth, creating an Ouroboros. This impressive girth is where the creature gets its name, World Serpent. Yormaganders also had a bit of a star-studded run in pop culture, appearing in Marvel Comics and most recently the new God of War, based around Nordic legends. Yormagander is fairly central to Nordic mythology, as it was said that when the creature would stop biting its own tail and release it from its jaws, it would be one of the signs of Ragnarok, and the creature would thrash its tail and the seas would rise up and flood Midgard, the Nordic term for their realm. There are several notable myths detailing Thor's many encounters with Yormagander, and his various attempts to overpower the beast and to slay the mighty serpent, although as the myths go, he was never quite successful. Good for me, because I actually don't think I would do too great in Ragnarok. I'm really not much of a fighter, and I don't think I would do well wrestling any Vikings. It's said that when Ragnarok occurs, Thor will slay the mighty serpent, only to find himself defeated by poison from the creature himself. All of this to say is that as far as sea monsters go, there could not possibly be anyone more powerful in lore than Yormagander. All this beast has to do to initiate the end of the world is to take its tail out of its mouth. The Megalodon wouldn't be able to challenge this thing. It would literally be over before it began. The Yormagander opens its mouth to start the duel, and that's it. It's done. Not only is the Megalodon done, but everything's done. Seas flooding, fires raining down from the heavens. How could there possibly be a more powerful sea monster than this? Unless they update the Nordic myths at all, I doubt anything will ever top the legend of the Yormagander. Number 5. Dagon and the Deep Ones. Coming up first on our list is a multifaceted entry with Dagon and the Deep Ones who worship him. They kind of go together. What is a Deep One? It's not a sea monster that went to first-year philosophy and is always trying to wax poetic, but rather a Deep One refers to a race of amphibious, humanoid-like ish sea creatures, closely resembling creatures like frogs or axolotls. If you've ever seen Hellboy's Abe Sapien or the monster from Shape of Water, those monsters are actually a pretty good representation for what a deep one should look like. Deep ones get their name from their homes, deep beneath the sea, obviously, where they live out their cold, often miserable lives. When deep ones do venture to the surface, they do so to sweep humans under their influence, promising them riches in exchange for worship, sometimes even mating with them, creating disgusting hybrid deep ones. And first and foremost, to ingratiate them into the cult of Dagon, worshipping their master, Dagon, a massive deep one of fantastic power. Dagon appears in the short story appropriately named Dagon, which is also a great jumping on point if you've ever been curious about reading H.P. Lovecraft and you didn't know where to start. It's one of the first appearances of any of the Lovecraft monsters at all. Dagon is worshipped by humans and deep ones in equal measure, no doubt thanks to his influence. Dagon is immortal, massive, and commands a lot of respect. It's unknown what the full extent of Dagon's power is, but given that he's an immortal sea monster with dominion over a race of pelagic nightmares that do his every bidding, let's assume that if he really wanted to stir up trouble, it would not be that difficult for him. Just ask the town of Innsmouth how they feel about their master. They've got nothing but positive things to say, I'm sure. And hey, while I got you here, if you're liking what we do, we'd always appreciate a subscribe our way, and you'll catch the best horror videos in your inbox every single day. Number 4, the Shogoths. A Shogoth or a Shogoth, I'm really not sure, which does sound a bit like something a 1920s chimney sweep might yell at you to get off. Hey, Shogoth! Is a disgusting, writhing mess of iridescent black slime and a sea of eyeballs engineered by the Elder Things to function as a race of tools for their will, as they're mostly used for undersea construction. They're amorphous, shape-shifting monstrosities, able to mock and reflect all matter of organ and life. A Shogoth is capable of molding itself however it needs to see fit to accomplish its dark dealings, which make them the perfect tools for the Elder Things. Now, the first generation of Shogoths were brainless husks, solely driven to appease their masters. But over the eons of their existence, the Shogoths began to mutate and develop a low form of consciousness, eventually rising up and overthrowing the Elder Things altogether and working for themselves to build their own cities, where they now reside in their city in Antarctica, poorly imitating their old masters, shrieking "Tikali, Tikali" over and over, an old rallying cry the Elder Things would shout at the Shogoths to get them to work. Poor little amorphous shape-shifting monstrosities. Now, although a Shogoth was intended to serve mostly as a being for construction, they're not without their abilities. A Shogoth is hulkingly strong, capable of crushing a human in seconds, and they're known for using their brute strength to solve problems in their way. For example, the Shogoth that makes an appearance in the Mountains of Madness crushes an entire rookery of penguins that was in its way beneath its mighty weight. While the Shogoths don't seem to have any higher goals or aspirations, they've shown themselves to be threatening enough that if crossed, you'll regret ever dismissing them as nothing more than tools. Number 3. Ugalinak. Ugalinak is colloquially known as the Defiler and is more properly known as the god of depravity and perversion, which is just about the worst way you can introduce yourself on a first date. Ugalinak isn't just into human perversions, oh no. This wretched great one has its sights set on something much bigger than anything our little human brains could conjure up. Ugalinak is after depravity on an incomprehensible scale. That's a word that gets thrown around a lot in the Lovecraft mythos, incomprehensible. Ugalinak's true form is unknown, as it seems to exist in a state outside of a physical body. But when it's looking to pursue some of its disgusting pleasures, it always acquires a human host. And when it takes a human host, it warps its body into a wretched, grotesquely obese form, lacking a head or a neck, and featuring a mouth in the palm of both hands. And I cannot imagine that it is getting up to anything good with those palms. Ugalinak is unlike most other great ones in that it's capable of directly speaking to humans in plain old English instead of indecipherable guttural noises. Its ability to speak English and communicate is what helps it to pursue its dark goals, as it seeks out humans who read perverse and forbidden literature, and it doesn't just hunt 50 Shades of Grey fans. It plants seeds of interest in human minds to research and eventually manipulating curious enough humans to read from the Revelation of Glocki, a cursed book containing Ugalinak's name. When read, it will be summoned. When Ugalinak is summoned, it makes its guests an offer, offering to make the summoner into a priest of Ugalinak, welcoming them into its service. It's best to accept this gracious offer, as a rejection will offend Ugalinak deeply, leading to the summoner to become its next meal. Unfortunate for you, but either way, Ugalinak is very pleased with the outcome. Either it gets a new servant for its life, or it gets a nice little midday snack. Number 2. Arlotep. Now, Arlotep is one of the most sinister entities in all of the Lovecraft pantheon, and one of the most popular beings as well, appearing across several stories in the universe, both by Lovecraft and other authors over the years. Arlotep first appears in the short story, Arlotep, which is also another great jumping on point for new Lovecraft fans who want to get into the lore somewhere and don't know where to start. It's pretty self-contained. Arlotep is unique in the pantheon for several reasons, but first and foremost is its freedom. Arlotep isn't trapped under the sea or in the stars like Cthulhu or Yogsapath, but rather enjoys the freedom of the earth as it wanders. It usually likes taking the form of a man, wandering as a tall, joyous, friendly man, all the better for it to influence people with. It's said that Arlotep has thousands upon thousands of forms and manifestations, and we can probably safely assume that most of them are horrifying and sanity-destroying. Arlotep could actually be described as the most human-like of any of the Elder Gods, which makes it all the more threatening. It's able to sway humans easily, gathering cults of personality around it. The original short story in which it appears, Arlotep is gaining influence over the populations by wandering the world, performing incredible miracles, claiming to have lived for 27 centuries, winning over the hearts and minds of legions of followers willing to devote themselves completely for Arlotep's will. Now, Arlotep seems to take a sickening pleasure in driving humans to madness. For Arlotep, death isn't the end game, but manipulating and twisting humans, driving them to insanity, that's the thrill. I guess it gets pretty boring being an unending, unstoppable power beyond the stars. You gotta find something to keep the day exciting, right? Merely being around Arlotep is enough to make a man sick. Arlotep isn't the absolute most powerful entity in the mythos, but it is definitely one of the most nefarious and threatening. Number 1, Yogsapath. Oh, it doesn't even feel good saying that coming out of the throat. I shouldn't be talking about stuff like this. This is above my pay grade. Yogsapath is a horrifying, unfathomably powerful god, and one of the most powerful gods in the whole mythos. If there's one big takeaway from H.P. Lovecraft's mythos, it's that there's always bigger fish up the food chain. We are so insignificant compared to everything else in the cosmos, but we think ourselves so important. We, the beastly fools of mankind, are dwarfed by the radiant greatness of Cthulhu, but Cthulhu himself is dwarfed by creatures like Yogsapath. Yogsapath, or Yogi as his close friends like to call him, is the embodiment of all time and space across the multiverse. Yogsapath, like most gods in the Lovecraft pantheon, is an indescribable horror beyond human comprehension, and like Arlotep, is known to be able to manifest and take several avatars to better serve its needs. But its most common form is described as that of being a massive, fractally glowing green orbs that continuously merge, separate, and regrow in an unending spiraling sea of tentacles, tendrils, and eyes. Yogsapath sees all. As the manifestation of time and space across the multiverse, there is nothing that can escape its gaze. It's wise to the entirety of all knowledge. It tempts humans by offering to impart that knowledge to those foolish enough to try and take advantage of that offer, who'll then have their lives utterly destroyed by madness after seeking its favor. The mere sight of Yogsapath in its natural form is enough to destroy the human brain irreparably. Now, Yogsapath's goals are just utterly beyond our understanding. It can't even be truly said that Yogsapath is evil in the manner we understand. Our ideas of morality and good and evil just wouldn't register to a being like this. We're just too small to even begin to comprehend the horrors of the multiverse. And it's best we don't, because the more you try to study something like this, the more your obsession grows, and the more you seal your own fate.
Number 5, the frilled shark. Chlamydoslacus ingenius and Chlamydoslacus africana, or better known as the frilled shark and the frilled South African shark, are the two extinct species of shark that swam our oceans. Thank gosh. Well, actually, still kinda do. The frilled shark is considered a living fossil, not just its age and time spent surfing the coast, due to its primitive eel-like physical trait, the brown color, the jaws, 8-foot body, and the way its fins, spine, and head move under the water are common in ancient serpents and water creatures. So this thing is like an eel-serpent-shark hybrid. Yeah. Little jarring, commonly referred to simply as the frilled shark because of its 6 pairs of gill slits at its throat. It swims amongst the Atlantic and the Pacific Oceans, usually in deep, dark, murky waters of the outer continental shelf and upper continental slope. These deep dive sharks usually live and sleep near the ocean floor. Okay, that's a good sign, of course. They live on a diet of cephalopods, smaller sharks, and even swim to the surface at night to feed what's floating atop on the surface. When hunting, the frilled shark moves like an eel, bending and slithering to swallow prey with its long and flexible jaws, which are equipped with 300 rows of recurved, needle-like teeth. So am I just gonna snorkel into one of these things any day now? Well, good thing is they're really hard to find. Like, really hard. Usually caught by accident in commercial fishing nets, usually at depths anywhere between 50 and 1,000 meters. So unless you're free diving at night, you should be okay. Yeah, they like it deep and dark. I'd say these things are already scarier than the Meg. It's like a shark but an eel-snake hybrid with a shark head and shark-size teeth. That sounds a bit scarier. Well, I mean, the Meg preferred warmer, shallower waters, so maybe this one's a tie. I don't know who's snorkeling 2 miles deep, but it's certainly not me, okay? In my opinion, I'd take a large great white over this dinosaur-looking thing slithering after me any day. Number 4, the fang-toothed fish. Ah yes, the Anoplogaster cornuta, or commonly known as the fang-tooth. I wonder why. Though they spend most of their time in the deep, common fangtooths are known to migrate towards the surface at night. The fangtooths are known to migrate towards the surface at night. That is the scariest sentence I've ever said. Dude, these are way scarier than this giant ancient shark. Like, all the scariest things come out at night, you notice that? And root canals, but they're usually done during the day. The word Megalodon is Greek words meaning giant tooth. I'd take big teeth over this thing chasing me around any day. Thankfully though, this guy is only about 1 foot in length. Okay, that's not so bad. The fish has a mouth that are full of long snake teeth, perfect for hanging onto its prey as they shake. The lockable jaws ensure that, although thrashing may occur, the fangtooth's teeth are locked clamps that effortlessly swim with dinner in its mouth, just getting dragged deeper and deeper down, wiggling and can't move, trying to run for their lives. Well, swim for their lives. And fish of any size. I'm sorry? Yep. Any size. Common fangtooths have been recorded at depths of about 5,000 meters, so whatever lives down there, it's game on. Look at this thing. I was scared of sunfish and seaweed brushing up against my legs. This thing swimming by me, this thing? It looks like a night terror in itself, stalking their preferred prey of crustaceans and, of course, other fishes the same size. Common fangtooths are more active than many other deep-sea fish and seek out food for meal and sport rather than being purely ambush predators eating when they're hungry. That's terrifying. Packing up for the long winter, huh? Their huge mouth and very long teeth ensure that they are able to attack prey and actually hold on while they relocate them to a deeper, darker spot where they can kind of take their time on the meal. I've swam with sharks. In my opinion, this thing's way scarier. Like, eating small critters running around the ocean floor, sure, but also imagine eating something the same size of itself with teeth? No problem? slowly devouring it bite by bite? Yeah, that's way scarier. Come on. Just reattaching itself every bite? Taking you along for the free ride? Yeah, that's horrifying. And number 3, the big fin squid. Of the genus Magnapinidae family, the big fin squid, or as I like to call it, this ocean alien with shoulders, belongs to a group of rarely seen cephalopods with a distinctive morphology, meaning they're really, really weird and rare. Magnapini meaning big fin, of course. The first record of us catching and looking at this family comes from a specimen talismani caught off the Azores in 1907. This was our first look at this bizarre fish, but due to the damaged nature of the find, little information could be extracted and was classified just as a squid. The problem is when you pull these things out of its atmosphere, it just looks like a piece of wet crinoline dress all of a sudden. Don't get the whole terrifying effect, you know? In 1956, a similar squid was caught in the South Atlantic, but during the 80s, 2 specimens were found in the Atlantic, then 3 more were found in the Pacific, and eventually the creatures found a place amongst the books as its own species, entering the family Magnapinidae. Squids. Okay, so it's not actually a squid, but loosely related, like a third cousin of maybe alien origin. This thing looks like it crashed here on an asteroid, I'm just gonna say it, doesn't it? Like there's only 12 of these, not many. The arms and tentacles are the same length. The appendages are also huge and held perpendicular to the body, creating the appearance of a illusion of arms and elbows, giving its trademark alien figure. Most remarkable is the length of the elastic tentacles, which has been estimated around 20 to 30 times its mass and length. Deep sea video evidence puts the total length of the largest specimens at 10 meters long. Yeah, that's 2 trucks. Close-ups of the body and head show us that the fins are extremely large, being proportionately nearly as big as those of a big fin squid. Hence, the comparison. While they do appear similar, no specimens or samples of the adults have been taken out of the water yet, leaving their exact identity, bodily functions, and internal organs a mystery. Awesome. Yes, more mysteries under the water. Alright, I only had really bad night terrors already. Let's just add this in there. Yeah, I'd take a shark swimming with a brain at me rather than this alien thing swimming up to me and just staring at me, trying to understand me for about an hour. Terrifying. Number 2, the gulper eel. Eurypharynx pelicanoides. The pelican eel, or what I just said, is basically a deep sea eel. Like deep, deep sea. If you've seen the Ridley Scott's Alien film franchise or the Predator universe, you'll know that this thing looks exactly like that. Yeah, am I wrong? But instead of like 8 feet tall, it's only 3 feet tall. Yeah, still terrifying. The pelican eel has been described by many synonyms, yet nobody has been able to demonstrate that more than one species of pelican eel exists. Riding solo, huh? That's creepy. One of a kind of deal. It's also commonly known as the gulper eel, or umbrella mouth gulper eel, due to its terrifying size and function of its mouth. The mouth and jaws resemble a pelican's gulp, hence the name. The morphology of the pelican eel can be difficult to describe because they're so fragile and oddly shaped that they become damaged when they're pulled out of the deep sea's immense pressure. We can't just swim all the way down there and take pictures, you know? The pelican eel's most notable feature, its mouth, which is much, much larger than its body, like 5 times the size. The mouth is loosely hinged and can be opened wide enough to swallow a fish 3 times its size. This thing has like a lower mandible of a python, just like unhinging it before dinner. The lower jaw is hinged at the base of the head with no body mass behind it, making the head look abysmally huge. It's basically a swimming mouth with a spine, tail, and I think a brain? Yeah, we don't really know yet. With dot-sized eyes, yeah. It usually is always moving too, rarely stationary. It hunts in some sort of folded state. The pelican eel's mouth has the capability to change to an inflated shape when hunting, giving the mouth its notably massive appearance. Dude, the mouth unfolds like the James Webb telescope. Like 100 working parts. Technically, it's like a geometric shape unfolding as a mouth, followed by stretching, like a cootie catcher. Remember those? This thing eats like a cootie catcher. When the pelican eel is in pursuit of its prey, it slowly starts unfolding itself. Imagine this thing's trucking behind you, unhinging its jaw, slowly the closer it gets. The head and jaw structure unfold and spread horizontally, not vertically. Okay, that's scarier all of a sudden. The unspreading event, or as I like to call it, lunch, is followed by the inflation of the mouth from the stretchable skin of the head, which it feeds on prey. Then, water's expelled via the gills. Okay, so it's basically a large strainer, and after it eats, it blows itself out, releases all the water back into the water. just wrings itself out. Come on, this thing is horrifying. Thank gosh it only eats crustaceans and creepy little crawlies on the bottom seafloor. And number 1, the phantom jellyfish. Stygiomedusa gigantea. I love that word. Commonly known as the giant phantom jellyfish, is a part of the monotypic genus of deep-sea jellyfish, Stygiomedusa. With only around 110 sightings in 110 years, it's a jellyfish that is rarely seen. Well, I guess like once a year. I don't know, I'm not really good at math. Believed to be widespread throughout the world, it thrives in all oceans and seas, with the exception of the Arctic Ocean. Yeah, a little too cold for it. The Monterey Bay Aquarium remotely operated underwater vehicles have only sighted the beast 27 times in 27 years. Dude, what's with all the matching numbers? Is this CIA run? A study conducted by the Journal of the Marine Biological Association of the UK revealed info regarding the species and had this to say. The Gigantea is thought to be one of the largest invertebrate predators on this planet. One more time please. The largest predator. It is commonly found in the ocean's midnight zone, reaching depths of about 7,000 meters. Deepest human free dive is about 300 meters. Okay. Yeah, we're good. Unless you have a wide lung span. The largest predators in the deep sea, the giant phantom jellyfish's typical prey consists of plankton and small fish. Whew. The S. gigantea tends to be dominant in locations with a low productivity system, meaning it deters other predators of fish, like it likes it quiet. A shy eater, I'd say. However, when this thing is hungry, it battles squids, eels, and even whales. Okay, never mind. Just when I thought this thing was really cute, it fights off whales for food. The first specimen, weighing in at 100 pounds, was collected in 1899, but it wasn't recognized as its own species until 1959. Imagine this thing chasing you and catching you, tangling you in like 100 feet of netting tentacles so it can just eat you slowly. Does this thing have a consciousness? Like, you can kind of tell if a shark is swimming near or close to you or what it's kind of feeling. This thing just slowly, softly swimming towards you before it ingests you? Way scarier. Like, I'm convinced these landed here. The oceans are way scarier than things on land. We haven't even started to uncover the whole ecosystem yet.